How's it going today at Nomad Mobile Maintenance and Repair? Today we are doing a oil pump timing job on a 543 valve. I always want to make it a 5.3. Anyways, 543 valve, and the customer had a code for the solenoids, and then on top of that they had what other code was it? Put something that really wouldn't indicate necessarily that you've got timing chain issues, but the customer had stated that they had a rattle on startup sometimes, and definitely that tells us that there is probably some chain issues going on. And knowing that I'm going to be pulling the valve covers off, and this engine is so wrought with issues, if the timing gets messed up, I really don't recommend doing anything but the full Monty plus the oil pump high flow, the high flow oil pump. That's really what's going to help keep this engine alive. But I'm sure you've been staring at it for the past minute going, please, dear God, say something. That's your timing guide. This is a common problem on these engines, that these timing guides just explode. And the fact that this customer's engine ran and didn't have oil starvation issues is absolutely incredible. I am going to have to make sure that I pull every piece of the the timing chain guide out to make sure that there is nothing in there that we need to worry about. And I have a feeling we're going to have to remove the oil pan to do so, which kind of sucks because this job was not entailing doing a oil pan as well. It was just the timing cover and chains and guides and all that jazz. This is definitely an engine that has not been maintained. The customer didn't get this too long ago, so this is all not their fault. But definitely this is something that is very common on these engines. And the most amazing part is that chain is still pretty tight, and that kind of makes sense because that's on the return side of that. But still, the fact that that guide is just completely destroyed is astounding. So yeah, this is why you do the timing guides and chains and tensioners. And we're also replacing these with the cast iron ones that don't shart the bed, because they're infinitely better. But yeah, that's what we got going on today. Thanks so much for joining us. How's it going at Nomad Mobile Maintenance? And this is exactly why we pulled the oil pan, is because right there we have plastic, which means the pickup picked up plastic, and that was just asking for it to starve itself of oil. It's not what I wanted to do, but definitely important. Thanks so much for joining us. Alright, we're back. We need to clean all of this. I physically cannot let this go back the way that it is. This one, I'd say, you know what? Probably just hit it with some brake clean, rinse it off just a bit, because it's not too terrible. Especially because I don't have a mobile parts washer, which would be super nice, but that's kind of unreasonable. But like, this front cover is just terrible. I was not expecting this much varnishing and just debris. Like, that's just caked on. Like, that's terrible. But the real concern right now is, if we look into the pan, I don't know if you can tell, there's quite a few sparkles in there. That is not dirt, that is 100% metal. I mean, I guess metal can be dirt. You know, like iron and stuff, find in the sand. But no, that's definitely bearing material. So we're gonna talk with the customer, see how's it going today here at Nomad Mobile Maintenance. We just finished with this timing chain phaser job. Turned out beautifully. Engine sounds absolutely tremendous. Now, we did notice that the crossover pipe is leaking, and the crazy part about that is you can see it right there. It's pretty obvious. Prior to service, it did not seem to have any leaks coming from there. Now, when I drained out all the coolant, I noticed that we saw some stop leak in there, and I'm going to guess that's the reason why. So we are going to recommend that they get that coolant crossover changed out. Maybe it'll stop itself up again. I don't really know. I don't think that's going to happen. But I will say that is unfortunate, because while we were there, it would have been so much easier to just replace that had I known. All right, so this is the aftermath. I mean, most of probably 95% of the aftermath, which these are all good chunks, honestly. You know, this is most of one guide and part of another guide that shattered, but definitely the passenger side got the brunt of the damage, and it just absolutely exploded. You can see all these pieces. If we come over to the drain, we can see just chunks in there. These were all what was in the oil pickup. We probably had a third of the pickup blocked or clogged. So that's why we dropped the pan. That's why we had to get that replaced, because if not, that would have just caused problems on problems. And we definitely made sure to get the high volume oil pump put in, because I think that's really going to help in the future, as well as doing more frequent oil changes. But this customer's vehicle is new to them, or relatively new to them, so hopefully from here on out they'll be able to get the maintenance on it that it needs. But they definitely dodged a bullet without the engine going and getting destroyed due to a lack of oil flow, or due to a chain going through the timing cover, or honestly any of these scenarios are horrible and you lose an engine, but they definitely dodged a bullet there. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Nomad. How's it going? This is Nomad Mobile Maintenance. We had this timing job on this F-150. We got done with it. We got it full of coolant, and we noticed that the crossover pipe was leaking right there. It had a pretty good crack in it, whether that was from taking it off, because sometimes it gets stuck and will break, or whether that was just because it was just that bad. I don't actually know, but what I do know is that it was leaking. We got that replaced. Now, the thing that makes me nervous is that the thermostat was a fail-safe thermostat, and that's never a good sign when you see one of those, because while it could be someone just, you know, having experience and they had a bad experience and it overheated, so that's just what they run now, but definitely that's not something that you really want to see on there, is because that can lead to an issue with maybe there was a head gasket blown or something else that was causing the engine to overheat. But we got that replaced. This should be good now. Thanks so much for joining us.